Nobody wanted the job of cleaning the precursor chamber. The artifact inside had not moved or glowed or done anything interesting in 4,000 years. It was boring work in a cold room, and the senior staff made sure only the lowest workers got assigned there. Ravi Sharma was the lowest worker on the archive station. He was human, and humans had only joined galactic society 3 years ago. Most species still looked at humans the way someone might look at a child who wandered into an important meeting. Curious, but not particularly impressed, the archive station orbited a dying red star at the edge of explored space. 12 different species sent their best scientists here to study objects left behind by civilizations that no longer existed. The precursors were the most famous of these dead races. They had built machines that nobody could understand and then vanished 50,000 years ago. Their greatest creation sat in Chamber 17. The researchers called it the Dreamer. It was a sphere of dark metal about 10 meters wide, covered in patterns that might have been writing or decoration or something else entirely. Every species in the hegemony had tried to activate it. They used electricity, radiation, mental projection, blood sacrifices, and mathematical prayers. Nothing worked. Ravi did not care about any of this. He pushed his cleaning cart through the heavy doors and started wiping down the sensor panels around the chamber walls. The work was simple. Dust collected on everything, even in space. He sprayed, he wiped, he moved to the next panel. Director Ometh had given him this assignment personally. The director was a shardkin, a species that looked like walking crystals. He stood 3 meters tall and spoke in a voice like wind chimes. When he assigned Ravi to Chamber 17, his tone made clear that this was not an honor. The artifact is completely inert, Ometh had said. Even a human cannot damage something that is already dead. Ravi had smiled politely and said nothing. He had learned that arguing with important aliens was pointless. They would think what they wanted to think about humans. His job was to earn enough credits to send home to his daughter on Earth. Everything else was just noise. The cleaning took 2 hours. Near the end, Ravi reached for a sensor panel that had a cracked edge. The metal was sharper than he expected. It sliced across his palm, drawing a thin line of blood. He cursed quietly and pulled his hand back. A few drops of blood fell onto the dreamer's surface before he could stop them. Ravi stared at the dark metal, waiting for alarms or angry scientists to come rushing in. Nothing happened. The blood just sat there, looking very red against the black sphere. He wiped it off with his cleaning cloth, bandaged his hand with supplies from his cart, and finished his work. That night, he lay in his small quarters and thought about his daughter Priya. She was 11 years old now, living with his sister in Mumbai. He had not seen her in person for 2 years. The video calls helped, but they were not the same as being there. He fell asleep thinking about her laugh. The dream came without warning. Ravi stood in absolute darkness, the kind of dark that felt thick and heavy. He could not see his own hands. He could not feel the floor beneath his feet. A voice spoke from everywhere at once. It was not loud, but filled the entire space. "Are you afraid?" Ravi wanted to say no. He wanted to be brave. But the darkness pressed against him like deep water, and he could feel something vast and ancient paying attention to him. "Yes," he admitted, "I am afraid." The voice was silent for a long moment. Then it said something strange. "Good. Fear means you understand." The ones who came before did not understand. They felt nothing, and so they broke. Ravi woke up gasping. His quarters were bright with artificial morning light. His hand throbbed where the cut was healing. He told himself it was just a dream. Stress from the new job. Nothing more. 3 levels above him, in the main research center, a junior scientist named Lyra was staring at her monitoring screen with wide eyes. She was Nazari, a small species covered in soft blue feathers. Her people were known for careful observation and detailed record-keeping. The screen showed the energy readings from Chamber 17. For 4,000 years, the line had been flat. Dead. 0. Last night, at exactly 3:47 station time, the line had spiked. Only for 3 seconds. But it was the first activity anyone had ever recorded from the Dreamer. Lyra pulled up the chamber access logs. Only one person had entered yesterday, but a human maintenance worker named Ravi Sharma. She saved the data and began writing a report. Director Ometh would dismiss it as instrument error. He always dismissed things that did not fit his theories. But Lyra had a feeling that something important had just begun. Lyra found Ravi in the maintenance bay 3 days later. He was repairing a filtration unit, his hands covered in grease and his mind far away from ancient artifacts. She stood at the doorway for a moment, watching him work. Humans moved differently than other species. They were not graceful like the Shardkin or precise like our own people. But there was something efficient about them. They wasted no motion. Ravi Sharma, she asked. He looked up, surprised to hear his name from an alien. Most of them did not bother learning human names. That is me, he said. Can I help you? Lyra stepped closer and lowered her voice. 3 days ago, you cleaned Chamber 17. Did anything unusual happen? Ravi thought about the cut, the blood on the dark metal, the strange dream. I hurt my hand, he said. Some blood got on the artifact. I cleaned it up. Lyra's feathers rose slightly. Among her people, this meant excitement. Blood, she repeated. Your blood touched the dreamer directly? Is that a problem? She shook her head quickly. Not a problem. But the artifact showed energy activity for the first time in 4,000 years. Exactly when you were in that chamber. Ravi stared at her. He did not know what to say. Director Ometh thinks it was instrument error, Lyra continued. But I checked the instruments. They're working perfectly. Before Ravi could respond, his communicator buzzed. A message from Station Command. He was to report to Chamber 17 immediately. When he arrived, the chamber was full of scientists. Director Ometh stood at the center, his crystal body reflecting the harsh lights. Around him, researchers from 6 different species operated scanning equipment and argued in multiple languages. The human is here, Ometh announced. Let us end this foolishness. For the next week, Ravi watched as the greatest scientific minds in the hegemony tried to recreate his accident. They collected samples from dozens of species: blood, skin cells, neural tissue. They applied these samples to the dreamer's surface using precise instruments and careful protocols. Nothing happened. The artifact remained dark and silent. Ometh grew frustrated. The Hegemony Council was pressuring him for results. If the dreamer could be activated, it would change everything. The precursors had built it to fight something terrible. A weapon that powerful could shift the balance between species. Finally, with no other options, Ometh ordered Ravi to touch the artifact directly. This is probably pointless, the director said, but we must eliminate all variables. Ravi approached the dreamer slowly. Up close, the sphere was even more impressive. The patterns on its surface seemed to move at the edge of his vision. He could feel something waiting inside, patient and old. He placed his palm flat against the metal. Golden light erupted from the point of contact. It spread across the entire sphere in seconds, filling every pattern and symbol with warm radiance. The chamber shook. Equipment fell over. Scientists scrambled backward. A voice spoke directly into every mind present. It was the same voice from Ravi's dream. Compatible neural pattern detected. Awaiting bonding confirmation. Ometh's crystal form flickered with colors that meant shock among his people. Impossible, he whispered. The precursors designed this for their own kind. How can a human be compatible? Ravi could not answer. He could not move his hand from a sphere. The light was inside him now, flowing through his blood and his thoughts. He saw flashes of images, worlds burning, darkness spreading between stars, and something else, something made of hunger and nothing else. The enemy approaches, the dreamer said. The void swarm has been detected at the edge of this system. Arrival in 72 hours. The room went silent. Every alien knew that name. The void swarm had nearly destroyed all life in the galaxy 50,000 years ago. The precursors had stopped it, but the cost had ended their civilization. Everyone believed the swarm was extinct. Do you accept the burden of protection? The dreamer asked. The question was for Ravi alone. He thought of Priya. He thought of Earth. He thought of the billions of lives that existed across the stars. But before he could answer, alarms began screaming throughout the station. The long-range sensors had confirmed what the dreamer already knew. something vast and hungry was coming. And Ravi Sharma, a maintenance worker who just wanted to go home, was the only one who could stop it. Ravi sat alone in his quarters, staring at the wall. His hand still tingled where he had touched the dreamer. The golden light was gone, but he could feel the artifact at the edge of his thoughts. Waiting. Patient. The door chimed. Lyra entered without waiting for permission. Her feathers were flat against her body, a sign of deep worry among the Nazari. "You have not answered the dreamer's question," she said. "I know. The council wants you to bond with it immediately. Director Ometh is preparing the chamber." Ravi laughed bitterly. Of course he is. 3 days ago, he thought humans were barely worth talking to. Now he wants me to save the galaxy. Lyra sat down across from him. "What is stopping you?" He pulled up a hologram on his personal device. A young girl smiled at the camera. Dark hair, bright eyes, a gap in her front teeth where a baby tooth had recently fallen out. "Her name is Priya," Ravi said. "She is my daughter. I promised her I would come home." Lyra studied the image. "She is beautiful." "How old?" 11. "She lives with my sister in India." "On Earth." He closed the hologram. "If I bond with this artifact, I might die. Even if I survive, I do not know what will happen to me." The dreamer said the ones who came before broke under the pressure. "The precursors," Lyra said quietly. "They created the dreamer to fight the void swarm. But they could not use it themselves." "Why not?" Lyra hesitated. "I have been researching their records. The precursors were brilliant, but they were also cold. They made decisions with pure logic. No emotion, no instinct." "That sounds like an advantage." "It was their weakness." Lyra leaned forward. "The dreamer is not just a weapon. It connects minds. It lets one person feel what millions feel. The precursors could not handle that much emotion. They had no practice carrying weight that heavy." Ravi understood then. The dreamer needed someone who could feel everything and not shatter. Someone who had practiced with grief and joy and fear and hope. Someone human. "The void swarm destroyed 200 worlds last time," Lyra continued. 12 species went extinct. The precursors stopped it, but they sacrificed everything. Every world, every life, just to drive it back into the darkness. And now it is coming again, 70 hours away. The hegemony fleet cannot reach us in time. We have mining ships and cargo haulers. Nothing that can fight. Ravi stood and walked to the small window. Outside, the dying red star cast bloody light across the station. Somewhere beyond that light, a hunger older than civilization was moving toward them that he made his decision. The walk to Chamber 17 felt longer than before. Scientists and crew members watched him pass. Word had spread. Everyone knew a human maintenance worker might be their only hope. The looks on their faces were strange mixtures of fear and desperate hope. Director Ometh waited by the dreamer. His crystal form was dim, colors muted. "The council has authorized all necessary resources," he said. "Whatever you need." Ravi ignored him. He walked straight to the dark sphere and placed both hands against its surface. "I have conditions," he said. The dreamer's voice filled his mind. "Speak them. If we survive this, you help me get home. To Earth. To my daughter." A long pause. "The bonding may change you. Your neural pathways will be different. I cannot guarantee you will be the same person who left Earth. I do not care about being the same. I care about seeing her again." Another pause. "I cannot promise success, but I will try. That is enough." Ravi took a deep breath. He thought of Priya's smile. He thought of the way she laughed at his terrible jokes. He thought of the promise he made when he left Earth. "I accept the burden," he said. The golden light returned, brighter than before. It poured into him through his hands, his eyes, his skin. He felt the dreamer's ancient mind connect with his own. 4,000 years of silence ended in a single moment. And then he felt everything else, every being on the station. 3,000 minds, full of fear and hope and confusion. He felt Lyra's scientific curiosity mixed with personal concern. He felt Ometha's pride crumbling into shame. He felt maintenance workers and researchers and pilots and cooks, all of them alive, all of them afraid. The weight was crushing. But Ravi did not break. He had spent his whole life carrying weight. Grief for his wife who died young. guilt for leaving his daughter, hope that he could give her a better future. Humans called this emotional baggage. The galaxy was about to learn that baggage could be armor. The bonding is complete, the dreamer announced to the chamber. Now we prepare for war. Ravi opened his eyes and saw the universe, not with his physical eyes. Those still worked normally, showing him the chamber and the scientists around him. But behind that ordinary vision, something new had awakened. He could sense the station's systems like extensions of his own body. Power flowing through conduits, air cycling through filters, 3,000 heartbeats scattered across metal corridors. "How do you feel?" Lyra asked carefully. "Heavy," Ravi said, "but not broken." Director Ometh stepped forward. "The Void Swarm will arrive in 68 hours. We need a plan." Through the dreamer, Ravi could access the station's tactical systems. What he found was not encouraging. The archive station was a research facility, not a military base. Its defenses included a few point defense guns meant for asteroid debris and a shield system designed for solar radiation. Against the swarm, they might as well throw rocks. "We cannot fight alone," Ravi said. "We need help. The hegemony fleet is too far away," Ometh replied. "We sent distress calls, but even the fastest ships cannot reach us in time. Then we ask everyone else." Ravi closed his eyes and reached through the dreamer. The artifact was designed to connect minds across vast distances. The precursors had used it to coordinate their final defense, linking entire civilizations into a single purpose. Now Ravi used it to call for help. The signal went out not as words or data, but as feeling. Every ship, every station, every living being within 3-star systems suddenly experienced what Ravi experienced. The fear of the coming darkness, the weight of responsibility, and underneath it all, a stubborn human refusal to give up. Responses came quickly. A mining convoy changed course. A trading fleet altered their route. An old warship that had been scheduled for decommission powered up its engines. Species that had been rivals for centuries turned toward the archive station, drawn by something they could not explain. "What did you do?" Ometh asked, watching the communication channels fill with incoming signals. "I reminded them that they are not alone." Over the next 2 days, ships arrived. They were not warships. They were cargo haulers and passenger transports, mining vessels and scientific probes. Their crews were merchants and miners, scientists and wanderers. None of them had military training, but they came anyway. Ravi stood in the command center, his mind connected to every ship through the dreamer. He could feel each captain's determination. A Nazari trader who had lost family to pirates and swore to protect others. A Sharkan engineer who wanted to prove her species could be brave as well as brilliant. A human freighter captain who simply said, "Earth folks look after each other. Might as well look after everyone else too." Lyra worked beside him, coordinating the fleet's formation. She had never commanded anything larger than a research team, but the Dreamer's connection let her share Ravi's awareness. For the first time, she understood why humans had survived their violent history. They were not stronger or smarter than other species. They simply refused to accept defeat. "The swarm is approaching," the Dreamer announced. "Contact in 6 hours." Ravi looked at the tactical display. The enemy appeared as a cloud of red dots, thousands of individual entities moving in perfect coordination. Each one was a living weapon, capable of consuming matter and energy to fuel its endless hunger. "They adapt to conventional weapons," he said. "Energy signatures become useless within minutes." Ometh nodded grimly. The precursors discovered this too late. Their advanced technology became worthless. Then we used something simpler. Ravi reached out to the mining ships in their fleet. Their captains carried equipment designed to break apart asteroids. Mass drivers that launched chunks of metal at incredible speeds. Kinetic impactors that required no energy signatures at all. "Rocks," one captain laughed. "You want us to throw rocks at them?" "Fast rocks," Ravi replied. "Very fast rocks." The fleet adjusted its formation. Mining vessels moved to the front, their industrial equipment now serving as weapons. Behind them, the other ships prepared to support and protect. Through the Dreamer, Ravi could feel the fleet becoming something more than a collection of ships. They were becoming a single organism, each part aware of every other part. When one captain felt fear, others sent courage. When one crew felt alone, the others reminded them of the connection. This was the dreamer's true purpose. Not destruction, but unity. Enemy contact in 3 hours, Lyra announced. Ravi took a deep breath and felt the weight of thousands of lives resting on his shoulders. His head ached. His hands trembled. The connection was straining his human brain in ways it was never designed to handle. But he thought of Priya. He thought of her smile. He thought going home, and he held on. The void swarm emerged from the darkness like a living nightmare. Through the dreamer's sensors, Ravi saw them clearly for the first time. They were not ships or creatures in any normal sense. They were holes in reality, patches of hungry nothing that consumed everything they touched. All ships, hold formation, Ravi broadcast through the mental link. His voice was calm, but every captain could feel his heart racing beneath the words. The mining vessel Dawn's Fortune fired first. 3 kinetic impactors launched at incredible speed, simple masses of iron accelerated by magnetic rails. They hit the lead swarm entities before any adaptation could occur. The effect was immediate. The darkness screamed without sound. 3 entities burst apart, unable to process an attack that carried no energy signature to absorb. "It works," Lyra gasped. "All mining vessels, fire at will," Ravi ordered. The battle became chaos. Hundreds of mass drivers launched thousands of projectiles. The swarm had expected energy weapons, shields, advanced technology. Instead, they faced the oldest weapon in existence, throwing objects very hard. But the swarm learned. After the first wave of destruction, they changed tactics. Instead of trying to absorb the projectiles, they simply moved around them. Their coordination was perfect. Each entity knew where every other entity was positioned. Ravi felt ships dying. The swarm reached a cargo transport on the fleet's edge and consumed it in seconds. The crew had no time to scream. Ravi felt their lives end through the dreamer's connection. Each death burning through his mind like a knife, he did not look away. He could not afford to. "Tighten formation," he commanded. "Protect the gaps." The fleet responded as one. Ships covered for each other, creating overlapping fields of fire. When a swarm struck at one point, defenders from multiple directions converged. An old warship called the Remembrance pushed to the front of the formation. Its captain was a scarred veteran who had survived a dozen conflicts. Human, the captain broadcast, "Focus on coordinating. We will handle the killing." The Remembrance unleashed weapons that had been outdated for centuries. Chemical rockets, explosive shells, technology so primitive that the swarm had no defense against it. Hours passed. The fleet lost ships. 12, then 20, then 35. Each loss hit Ravi like a physical blow. But they kept fighting. Lyra monitored the casualty reports with growing horror. "They're not retreating. They should retreat. They have nowhere to retreat to," Ravi replied. "If we lose here, their homes are next." The swarm began focusing its attacks. Not randomly, but with purpose. They had identified the coordination source. "Warning," the dreamer announced in Ravi's mind. "The core intelligence is targeting this station." Ravi saw it then. The mass of smaller entities was just the outer layer. At the center of the swarm floated something larger. A consciousness that directed the hunger. It was ancient and patient and very, very smart that IT was coming for him. "Director Ometh," Ravi called. "I need every ship that can be spared to protect the station." Ometh's crystal form flickered. For a moment, the director hesitated. Then he did something unexpected. He moved toward the hangar. "Where are you going?" Lyra asked. "To lead the defense personally," Ometh replied. "I have spent years looking down on humans. It seems I was the small one all along." The crystal being launched in a light fighter, joining a squadron of defenders around the station. Through the dreamer, Ravi felt Ometh's fear transform into determination. But it was not enough. The swarm core pierced the outer defenses. Then the middle defenses. Ships threw themselves in its path, sacrificing themselves to slow it down. Each death screamed through Ravi's connection. His nose was bleeding. His hands shook uncontrollably. The dreamer warned that his neural pathways were degrading. You can disconnect, the artifact offered. Save yourself. No, Ravi Guisperth. Not yet. Not until it is done. The swarm core reached the station's hull. Metal tore like paper. Alarms screamed throughout every corridor. Lyra grabbed Ravi's arm. It is inside. It is coming for you. Ravi stood on unsteady legs. Blood ran from his nose and ears. The weight of thousands of connected minds pressed against his skull. Then I will meet it, he said. Keep the fleet fighting, no matter what happens to me. He walked toward Chamber 17, where the dreamer waited. Behind him, the battle raged on. The swarm core filled Chamber 17 like a living shadow. It had no fixed shape, constantly shifting between forms that hurt to look at. Where it touched the walls, metal dissolved into nothing. Where it passed, reality seemed to thin. Ravi stood between it and the dreamer. Blood covered his face. His body trembled with exhaustion. But he did not move. You are the source, the swarm core said. Its voice was not sound but pressure, pushing against Ravi's thoughts. You coordinate the resistance, end the connection, and I will consume you quickly. No, the core shifted closer. The precursors try to stop me with weapons, with technology, with logic. They failed because they did not understand. I'm not evil. I am hungry, and hunger cannot be killed. Ravi felt the dreamer pulse behind him. Through their connection, he understood something the precursors never had. The swarm was not an invader. It was a survivor, created by a civilization even older than the precursors, designed to find food in the empty darkness between stars. It had been starving for millions of years. What do you want? Ravi asked. To be full, to stop the pain, to finally rest. Ravi thought about hunger. He remembered nights on Earth when there was not enough money for food. He remembered the hollow ache that made everything else impossible to think about. He remembered how it felt to be so empty that nothing else mattered. The swarm was not a monster. It was desperate. The dreamer connects minds, Ravi said slowly. It lets people share what they feel. The precursors tried this trick. They could not sustain the connection. Their minds broke. I'm not a precursor. Ravi reached out through the dreamer, not as an attack, but as an invitation. He opened the connection between himself and the swarm core. The core recoiled. What are you doing? Showing you something. Ravi shared the feeling of eating after days of hunger. The warmth of food filling an empty stomach. The satisfaction of need finally met. He shared the memory of holding Priya as a baby, the overwhelming fullness of loving someone so much it hurt. He shared the connection he felt with every being in the fleet, the bonds that made strangers into family. This is what being full feels like, Ravi said. Not consuming, connecting. The swarm core shuddered. For the first time in its existence, it experienced something other than hunger. Through Ravi's human capacity for emotion, it felt what the precursors could never show it. I did not know, the core whispered. I did not know there was another way. There's always another way. The core was silent for a long moment. Outside, the battle continued. Ships died. People fought. But slowly, something changed. The swarm entities stopped attacking. They drifted confused, waiting for orders that did not come. If I stop, the core said, I will starve again. The hunger will return. Then stay connected. Not to consume, but to share. The dreamer was built to link minds across the galaxy. You could be part of that link. The precursors would never have offered this. I'm not a precursor. Ravi smiled weakly. I am human. We make friends with everything. Dogs, cats, sometimes even things that try to kill us. It is a bad habit we cannot seem to break. The core made a sound that might have been laughter. Very well, human. I will try your way. The swarm entities went dormant. Thousands of hungry shadows became quiet, settling into peaceful stillness. The battle was over. Ravi collapsed that he woke 3 days later in the station's medical bay. Lyra sat beside him, her feathers bright with relief. The fleet survived, she told him. 42 ships lost, but the rest made it. The swarm has not moved since you fell unconscious. The core. still connected to the dreamer, still learning. It says it wants to understand more about feeling full without eating. Ravi laughed, then winced at the pain in his head. The dreamer's voice echoed in his thoughts. Your neural pathways are healing. You will recover fully. Good, Ravi replied. I made a promise to someone. 2 months later, a transport ship landed in Mumbai. Ravi walked down the ramp on unsteady legs, still recovering from wounds that doctors said should have killed him. A girl with dark hair and bright eyes ran across the landing pad. Papa. Ravi caught Priya in his arms and held her tight. Tears ran down his face. He had traveled across the galaxy. He had bonded with an ancient weapon. He had ended a war that lasted 50,000 years. But this moment was the only miracle that mattered. In his mind, the dreamer watched quietly. You asked me to help you get home, the artifact said. I did not expect home to feel like this. Ravi thought back. That is the human miracle. Home is not a place. It is who waits for you there. He held his daughter and did not let go.